last week of this fascinating Tour de France gets underway today as the riders leave Brive La Gaillarde, heading south towards their next big rendezvous tomorrow, the Pyrenees. Denmark are confident they've found their first ever winner of the race. Bjarne Riis certainly looks strong. His lead is 56 seconds over Abraham Olano, the world champion. Then follows the Russian rider Evgeny Berzin. Miguel Indurain told us last night he still believes he can win his sixth Tour de France and he will attack. Chris Boardman could still make the top 20 by Paris, while the last man, well, he just hopes he can get there. And while the riders make their way today towards Villeneuve-sur-Lot, we believe there are still 5 can win this Tour. That's how open it is. Let's assess their chances. Bjarne Riis's biggest asset is he came to this race believing he could win it. His confidence and morale couldn't be higher. He climbs and he time trials well and has made himself the man to beat. Current odds, the bookies make him the hot favourite. Abraham Olano, the first Spanish World Road Race champion, has finished second in the Tour of Spain last year and third in last month's Tour of Italy. He's never finished a Tour de France, but he's matured this season. His assets are, he climbs and time trials better than most. Current odds, 6 to 1. Evgeny Berzin is a fighter, but he's also susceptible to too many bad days. However, if he can get to within a minute of the leaders after the mountains, he could win this race in the time trial on Saturday. The current odds, 10 to 1. Tony Rominger has yet to prove himself to be anything other than a follower. He time trials with the best, but is handicapped now with the higher place of his teammate Olano. He also has an injured right knee, and his hopes are fading. His current odds, though, 7 to 1. Miguel Indurain has the most to do, but everyone knows his ability after 5 wins. Champions hate to lose races, and Miguel will do his best not to lose this one, but he will have to ride better than ever before. His current odds, he's now second favourite at 11 to 4. Well, I'm not too sure today will be the day for Miguel Indurain to launch an attack against Bjarne Riis at a fairly flattish stage as they run away from the Corrèze into the department of the Lot-et-Garonne, overall distance of 176 kilometres. And leaving in the peloton of 136, yes, that's all that's left in this year's Tour de France. Bjarne Riis, they always say you become a man of great stature when you pull on the maillot jaune. Riis certainly no exception in this Tour. And Miguel Indurain, well, at this stage of the race, these past 5 years, he's been the man in yellow. I wonder if he'll get that jersey back. And Chris Boardman, he always has said he's a top 20 finisher in Paris, at least before he started the Tour he did, and he still has a chance to do that with the Pyrenees and a long time trial to come. But at the first sprint today, a breakaway. 28 riders going clear after only 6 kilometres. None of them of a danger to Bjarne Riis. And at Les Quatre Routes, it was Zabel in the green points jersey snatching the points again, ahead of Baldato and Jackie Durand of France.
Weather's very easy today, Phil. Sunshine, hot, and getting hotter.
And now, as we join the race here, there is a breakaway of 6 from those original 28. They all went back to the bunch on the Côte de Juan-le-Patre after 38 kilometres. And the 6 riders who survived are right here. Neil Stevens, Michele Bartoli, Francois Lemarchand, Giuseppe Guiarini, Massimo Podenzana and Pete van Petegem. And that's Van Petegem at the back. The last time check we got was 9 minutes and 30 seconds.
No major reaction by the main field, although a little while ago it was the Refin team of Jamaluddin Abdujaparov who were at the front, and they were trying to close it down a little bit, but as they went to the front, the gap actually went up.
Well, I suppose it's the sort of move in the end we should have prophesied, because with the riders going to Hautecam tomorrow, a very, very difficult finish indeed. You may remember a couple of years ago at Hautecam, a great battle there between Luc Leblanc and Miguel Indurain, and so they're thinking of that climb, while these riders are thinking only of a stage victory. Neil Stevens lying 92nd in the Tour at the moment, and he is 1 hour and 17 minutes behind. Little note there to Laurent Roux, because we're passing through the home of Laurent Roux today. His supporters are out in force, and in fact they've invited all the journalists of the Tour de France to stop by at the 170-kilometre point and enjoy a glass of wine and some of the local delicacies with them. Their way apparently of saying thank you for the publicity you've given Laurent over the last week of this Tour. Well, I think Paul, he's made his own, because he's been in most moves.
He has, and I think he would love to have been here today, but he's got a teammate in there, Peter van Petegem, who made a great move to get into this group of riders who went clear, and now you can see the gap starting to come down a little bit, 8 minutes and 29 seconds. But it's great to see Neil Stevens in the break, because he was actually talking to the Australian press yesterday, and he told them, I really don't feel good in this Tour, I feel a little bit tired, but just like last year on the very hot day in Timon on the 14th of July. Steve-O is in the break just as he is today.
The best man in the break, by the way, is Michele Bartoli. He's 29th in 28 minutes and 3 seconds behind Bjorn Larice, so that's why we're looking at the bunch here. No telecom shirts at the front, but indeed the shirts of Refin. And Refin is an Italian team, and of course the team of Jamaluddin Abdujaparov, who won yesterday. And I think they're trying to close down the gap. They've pulled back 45 seconds.
Well, as soon as they got themselves organised, it took them a while, but now they really are concerted at the front of this group. They want to try and pull it back because they do feel, I think, that Jamaluddin Abdujaparov can win in the sprint if he can beat this man in the green jersey here of Erik Zabel, who has 2 stage victories to his credit so far.
And there's Laurent Roux, the little man with the big heart, who is riding this race for the very first time and passing through his home department here. He knows the supporters are out, and a nice little smile from him. Enjoying a Tour de France for the first time and riding it with some distinction, because he has been attacking. He's been a little bit inexperienced, therefore, otherwise, well, I think he would have won a stage, but he's read the actual moves, but he hasn't known how to handle himself when he's got himself in a finished situation.
And I think that's what's happened to him all throughout this year. He's had some very close second places, second in the French National Championships to Stefan Hurlo, and also second place on one of the stages in the Giro d'Italia. And he really, I think, over the next couple of years will improve and be a good French hope.
Well, there's Bjorn Larice. The rumour spreading amongst the race followers today that Bjorn Larice has a little touch of gastroenteritis, and we wondered if it was true when he disappeared into the bushes after about 5 kilometres today, but he came running out and got back on his bike and then found that breakaway of 28 had gone up the road. None that worried him at all. He knew Erik Zabel was there, his teammate anyway, so that really, the break didn't worry him, but it might, it is a little bit worrying to think if he is getting some stomach problems.
Well, these are always the kind of rumours that start to spring around, especially if a man's been in the yellow jersey for such a long period of time. And we're going into the 2 hardest stages of the Tour de France in the Pyrenees now. But it may well just be one of those rumours which is not really important at the moment, because to me, it looks very much as if Bjorn Larice is okay.
He certainly doesn't look at all uncomfortable in the heat of the sun today as the riders head into the Lot-et-Garonne. 6 riders are in the lead. The Refin would like them back. We'll take a break.
Bike design has improved a bit in the Tour de France over the years, and so consequently has the speed of the men on them. A quick glance down at the speedometer when we come back. The average speed in the first Tour de France in 1903 was 25 kilometres an hour. If you think the pictures are good, that was a reconstruction. The 30-kilometre mark wasn't broken until 1934, when the winner of the race was Antonin Magna. By 1960, the average was up to 37 kilometres an hour, and the Tour hit top speed in 1992 with an all-time high of 39.5, which by my calculations would have put Maurice Garin, the winner of the 1903 race, 62 hours behind Miguel Indurain. The average speed so far this year, by the way, is 38.9 kilometres an hour, which is pretty good going when you consider the atrocious weather we had the first week. Regardless of speed, though, this is turning into a great Tour de France, with much of the credit, it has to be said, going to Denmark. To the roll of honour that includes Lager, Lurpak and the Laudrup brothers, the Danes can now add Holm, Hamburger, Skibby, Sorensen and Rees. There are only 5 of them, but the Danes are having a great tour.
Bjorn Larice, the winner of the stage, 46 kilometres today. It's done an awful lot of damage.
Right now in Denmark, if you compare football, the cycling is on the same level, if it's not a little bit higher now.
Sorensen gets it on the line. Rodriguez is second, Berenk is third, LeBlanc is fourth, and that was a deserved result for Rolf Sorensen.
Very, very good for Danish cycling, and I think we've reached the peak, and we have to do something about it.
So far in the Tour, there have been stage wins for Rees and Sorensen, second place for Skibby, Holm working hard to keep his leader in the yellow jersey, and all of them appearing at the front on just about every stage for a huge TV audience back home.
It's craziness in Denmark now. People leave their work. We hear from about theatre rehearsals which are interrupted, film shootings interrupted. People want to see the race.
Han kører, vi kommer, og Sørensen holder, det bliver sejr til Sørensen.
The minority of the Danish population not watching the 5 hours of live TV coverage a day seems to have decided to see it in person. And they're having a pretty good tour too. The question remains, though, how so few riders can have such a great impact on the race.
I don't know, I just think we are lucky to have a very good generation of riders. It's great.
I have no idea, really. I think it's just luck.
Of course, the other question is where Jesper Skibby got his haircut and whether he took his helmet off during it. But all that matters to the Danish fans is winning their first tour. Well, I'm not sure exactly how that last bit translates, but we did get a Danish reporter to listen to all the songs in that piece, and apparently they're all clean. Now, before we go back to the racing, one piece of news in case you missed today's banner headlines. The CTC, the Cyclist Touring Club of Great Britain, the largest cycling organisation in Great Britain, has just named its new president, Mr. Phil Liggett. So as I hand you back to the racing, ladies and gentlemen, the president.
Well, thank you, Gary. In fact, I'm very proud to be part of the CTC next year as their president from 1997. Now with the Tour de France, and these riders are still clear. There has been a chase down, but they seem to be now hovering at around about 5.5 minutes, the gap. It should be enough. We've just gone under the 20-kilometre to go banner, and it does seem as though one of these riders in the lead today is going to have the taste of a first-ever stage victory in the Tour.
Well, Francois Lemarchand would really like to be the person who could get that. He was another rider who was so close to a big victory this year in the French National Championships when he was in the breakaway with, in fact, Laurent Roux, and he crashed on the final descent just 2 kilometres from the end.
And it's so hot out here now, the height of the day, as they race down towards a first-time ever finish at Villeneuve-sur Lot. There's been a lot of new stage towns on the Tour this year. This is another one of them. We usually go down to nearby Agen, which is D'Artagnan country, and from there, in fact, they will start tomorrow morning.
Good chance there just to have a look at the new handlebars a lot of riders have adopted this year. They're called the Spinacci bars, which is the name given to them by their brand makers, Cinelli, but they're really an adaptation of the triathlon bar, which they have to be with inside the brake levers on the front of the bicycle there to make them legal. A lot of riders find them very comfortable, and they can get down into a tuck position and use a much bigger gear.
Another welcome for the Tour de France, etched out of the field by a local farmer. The Tour de France, wherever it goes, is treated like royalty in France. These little villages really do try to outdo one another with bigger flowers, bigger bicycles decked out in flowers. They hang them from the rooftops. Marvellous atmosphere. They have a full day of festival before the Tour riders arrive and pass through, of course, in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes on a stage like this. Well, I think that the telecom team are going to feel extremely pleased with their day out today, because they've found a team here, Refin, who have taken up the pacemaking at the front. They haven't done hardly anything at all today. Zabel went off in the early attack, but he came back to the bunch, and no problems for them at all. But tomorrow, Bjarne Riis, who is threatening to ride away from the field on the climb to Otakam if he can, as we go to the finish in the Pyrenees tomorrow, it could be just the rest he wants today.
The winner is going to come from this group of 6 riders, but which one? None of them really super winners in their own right, apart from Michele Bartoli, the MG rider. And it's interesting to note, as he drops back on the right-hand side there, that the 2 wheels he's got on his bicycle today have aerodynamic rims. A lot of riders will opt for those on a day when they feel it's a day that they would really like to have a chance at going for the stage victory. And the reason for that is they're usually very uncomfortable to ride for long distances, so you only use them occasionally.
Well, back to the bunch, Fernandez Gines, the champion of Spain. Well, he's ambitious if he thinks he can bridge this sort of a gap. And down the outside goes Podenzana. He's sat at the back, and he's ripped away from the field. Maybe he thinks that the 2 attacks he's just seen are good enough, but now look at the speed here in Peter van Peterkam's legs, having been the passenger at the back of the race. Stevens marking him.
Well, Van Petergem knows that if he wants to win this race, he's got to chase down all these little attacks like this. And the fact that he sat on this brake for such a long time, the other riders will force him to do the work. Well, the chase really has gone out of this group now. You know, they're starting to get a little bit upset about the fact that Podenzana has gone away, and Bartoli, he doesn't want to wait too much longer, so he goes again down the right-hand gutter. And there, in fact, Francois Lemarchand reacts straight away.
Well, Lemarchand was ready for that, because Bartoli went right under his nose from the centre of the brake. Now they're all scrabbling again for the wheels. Neil Stevens trying to catch onto the wheel here of Guiarini, who really is slow to react each time now.
Well, Guarini does seem to be the one that ends up going the last onto the back of this group, but each time Neil Stevens is actually riding very well because he's forcing the other two riders in the breakaway to close down the gaps, and he's not closing them down himself.
Well, Bartley more or less tempted them all to go with him there, and they didn't, so Steve-O's had to go on. The others are just trying to catch up. I think if Bartley leaves this group, that's it, because the men... Oh, and Steve-O almost overshot here. He's locked up, and I think he went the wrong way.
He went down. In fact, he just went into one of the bales there, and he's taken a tyre off there, and it's all over for Neil Stevens. That is a shame, because he looked so good to me. We can get a replay here as he comes into the corner. He locks up his back wheel because he's gone in too quickly and just goes off the edge of the road.
Well, that is amazing. Neil Stevens just put his back brake on. He was lucky to miss that lamppost that was standing there. His tyre forced off by the pressure. So a new wheel for Stevens. And in fact, I think he was serviced there, Paul, by a TVM car, which is rather nice. Guarini here had the bird's eye view of the crash there of Neil Stevens. But got himself organised. It's been a long day in the saddle for this man out front from 6 kilometres, and he's suffering now.
One man caught out in the crossfire there with Neil Stevens going down. In fact, it's Francois Lemarchand, who is about 100 metres behind this group of 3 riders at the moment, and he'll have a hard time closing the gap.
Well, we're coming under, what will it be, 3 kilometres to go. If Francis knew that Stevens was chasing, maybe together they could catch up.
Well, that was such a shame. Stevens came in there. He'd reacted to the attack by Michele Bartoli, and he was going straight across the gap there. He was still in good shape, but that's just the thing that happens when you come into these roundabouts. Sometimes you have a little bit too much speed, and the exit is much steeper than you thought it would be.
Guarini goes through. Peter van Petegem latching onto the back wheel now. Michele Bartoli. These 3 are working very strongly together now. They've got 2 behind and 1 in front, and they want the 1 in front back, and they've only got just under 3 kilometres, less than a mile now, 1.5 miles to go to the finish.
Bartoli is very strong. He should never have let that move of Podenzana go clear. Every time this group has slowed down, the man there, Michele Bartoli, has been the strongest in this group, and I don't think he'd be very happy with letting a move like that go clear.
And you see the little sprockets, the cluster at the back here, meaning these riders today have chosen the highest set of gear ratios because there was no real challenges as far as the hills were concerned. Certainly there's a challenge in the sun. Just look at the perspiration here on the face of Peter van Petegem. 27 seconds splits these 3 from Podenzana. They're working together, but I think they're beginning to look like they're beaten because Podenzana hit them at exactly the right moment, and while they were all trying to get up to him, he kept his pace nice and steady. 2 kilometres to go now. Bartoli, Guarini and van Petegem. Nice wide boulevard roads now as they head into the finish at Villeneuve-sur-Lot.
Incredible ride there by Massimo Podenzana, though. In fact, he's only ever had 5 victories in his career, 2 of them very big ones, the National Championships of Italy on 2 successive years. But to come to the Tour de France like this and take on the world's best, he really did put in a superb attack there. He wasn't even worried about the fact that Michele Bartoli was the strongest man in the breakaway. That is sometimes a sad thing if you're the strongest. As he goes under the 1 kilometre kite, I think he's going to be a very happy man, and he realised that victory's almost his.
Well, he'll turn right, and then he'll turn left, and then he'll see the finishing straight, and he's not going to believe this. His day out in the hot sun is going to be rewarded with the first prize, which approaches £4,000 for the winner.
Guarini has gone there. He's going to get 2nd place because now Michele Bartoli's just going to stay on the wheel of Peter van Petegem. He didn't do a whole lot of work there to try and keep this group away, but this man has done the ride of the day.
Podenzana is going to win the stage, and Guarini, well, you always must suffer to the very end in a Tour de France, and suffer he has, Guarini, but he's going to get 2nd because of it, by the look of it. Podenzana coming up towards the finish here. A terrific welcome here in the streets of Villeneuve, and now he's got the stage victory. The twice champion of Italy gets only the 6th win of his career as Massimo Podenzana gets the stage in the Tour de France today. And Guarini, who looked absolutely out for the count not 10 kilometres ago, suffered his way to 2nd place and took full advantage in the last kilometre to get the gap. So a man who has tried daily to get a result finally gets one today for the Polti team. He'd alight the 1st place. He'll have to settle for 2nd, but 1st and 2nd are going to Italy today. It's an awful long way up the finishing straight here in Villeneuve, and Guarini is going to have to race it all the way to the line. 2nd for him. And a sprint for third place, Peter van Petegem, taking on Michele Bartoli, winner of the Tour of Flanders, and Van Petegem should be the fresher, and he is easily. He sat at the back all day, he gets third place, Bartoli is fourth. And now comes home Francis Le Marchand, riding his 10th Tour de France, and this will be one of his best results. Fifth place for Le Marchand. And the first Frenchman today, the 3 Italians and a Dutchman in front of him. And here's a big cheer from the crowd too, as Francis keeps the revs up right to the line. 1 minute and 13 seconds, a little bit more. And the unluckiest man of the race today is Neil Stevens. He was nearly onto the wheel of Bartoli when he put that attack in. He overshot the roundabout, crashed, and the good news, of course, is he's not hurt, but he's now going to have to be content with being last of the 6-man breakaway, and he won't be too happy with that. Neil Stevens comes home 6th place today for the Once rider. There's the winner today, Massimo Podenzana. This is how he did it. He went away approximately 8 kilometers from the finish. He never panicked. He kept up the pressure. He rode them all off today, and he got Italy's 2nd victory of this year's Tour de France.
Well, Steve-O, you look pretty good in the break there. In fact, we thought you looked one of the freshest.
Yeah, you know, like I said to Podenzana just at the raid, you know, like I didn't care who won, but the TVM guy was sitting on all day. I'm sure he wasn't going to win. And when he took off, I just sort of sat behind the TVM guy. And then when Bartoli went, so I tried to go with him, and unfortunately my tyre came off of one of the roundabouts, and down I went.
It looked as if you went into the roundabout a little bit too quickly there, and that may be what the problem was.
Yeah, you know, I think the glue should hold on though, but anyway, I'll have a bit of word to the mechanic later on this evening and see what he says.
Now as they open up the sprint for the line here, we've got Scott Sunderland, I think it is on the left of the picture, but right in the middle, Zabel trying to grab the wheel of his old rival, Fabio Baldato. As they start to wind it up for the finish now, Moncassin coming out on the left in the white jersey, Baldato as well. It's going to be a win for Moncassin and get his own back this time. And he looks across at the green jersey of Zabel and says, well, that one's for me. But unfortunately today, it's only for 7th place. An Italian on top tonight, Massimo Podenzana, getting home first in Villeneuve-sur-Lot. He finished 37 seconds in front of Giuseppe Guerini. Neil Stevens, the unlucky 6th. The main field was led home by Frédéric Moncassin, but they were 5 minutes and 38 seconds behind. Chris Boardman, he was safely tucked in that. Twice an Italian champion, now a stage winner of the Tour de France. Podenzana was certainly the man today. But the man overall, it's still Bjarne Riis. No change at all, with Abraham Olana, the world champion, lying 2nd. Miguel Indurain, he's still 4 minutes and 38 seconds behind. He must show himself tomorrow. And Chris Boardman, too, also faces his next big test. Will Bjarne Riis be the man to lead the way to Otakam? Gary Imlach asked him.
Bjarne, everybody's looking forward to tomorrow's stage. You said that you're looking to win it by 2 minutes. Do you still feel as good?
Well, 2 minutes, you never know what happens, but I would like to have 2 minutes to the others, that's for sure. I do what I can, and we have to see what happens.
Is it your kind of stage tomorrow with that huge finish?
If I do a good race, yes.
And I'm quite sure a few of his challengers as well would like to do a good ride tomorrow. Now we're in the Pyrenees, the big fight begins. And if this heat continues, combining with the mountains, it could well be a war of attrition. And let's not forget either, Miguel Indurain is 32 years old tomorrow, a day he normally celebrates wearing a yellow jersey. Follow the action with us tomorrow night on Channel 4. The time, 6:25. Until then, goodbye.